he stayed in his seat and we chatted. So my brother texts me and says, "So, you going to ask him for a selfie?" And he read my message. And when I got off, he goes, "So, we're going to take that selfie?" So I took a selfie with him from that position. So that was kind of
like
cool.
A Zoolander type.
Yeah. I did Blue Steel.
All right, welcome back to the latest episode of Game des Glaires. My name is E, and as usual, I'm here with the boss, Mr. Alliance. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, E. I'm doing good. So we're back on our part 2 of questions. We had about 30 questions last episode, and we got up to like question 19, it says. So today we're going to try and tackle the rest of the questions within the allotted time. So within an hour, hopefully we could get through the rest of the questions. We were a little long last night. Last time E kept on giving these long answers. I tried to keep him short, but he doesn't always.
I ramble.
That's it.
And they're all very philosophical, so it's just,
Exactly. What have you been filming these days? Let's talk about, before we get into our questions, what have you been doing sports-wise on the side besides beyond the game day glare?
Not much. Last week, well, actually, football is the answer. Because last week I did some college football, which, like, here in Quebec, Canada, call it cégep. And it was good. It was different. I met Camille. Shout out to Camille, who's one of our fans, someone who recognized me from YouTube, and we hung out for most of the game. And it was interesting. The level is pretty good. And then tomorrow I'm filming what in the US they would call college football, but it's like university level football. So it's all about football. What about you?
It's all about hockey. What?
Bed sheets? Was that?
Bed sheets, yeah. Doing some bed sheets. So I'm doing some corporate stuff in the linen world. But also it's hockey season. The Montreal Canadiens are back. So we had the home opener the other day. It was really, really cool. We had an orchestra on the ice. I had a really good camera position for the opening. Every player had to skate to my camera to do their little wave and stuff like that. So it's always a little nerve-wracking. You just got to make sure you're in focus. As long as you're in focus, you're good. So it was a good game. We won 1-0. So it was a nice way to start the season. And so it's all about hockey right now for me in the sports world.
Well, I was going to ask you, because I know you filmed an NBA game as well, but I know that the first question on the list kind of sets you up for talking about that. So I thought I'd wait. But now it looked like you were going in a direction where you might spoil it. So let's just go with the question, which is, how do you balance filming live action while staying out of the way? Out of the way of the game.
So E, what we talk about off camera is supposed to stay off camera, okay? So I was lucky enough to film the Raptors versus the Wizards, which was kind of cool. The Wizards had T-shirts that in French said "Les Sorcières," which is like
nice.
that's the French word for wizards. So it was kind of cool. That was cool.
Sorcerers would be
sorcerers.
Sorcière would be like witches.
Oh, okay, sorcerers then.
Oh, well, sorcerers English. Sorry, sorcier. Yeah, sorry.
So I go to film the Raptors game. I'm supposed to be doing play-by-play. There's a change in camera positions. I got to go to the floor. So I'm on the floor, and I realize I'm not as young as I used to be, and I'm not as flexible as I used to be. So I get asked, I have to sit underneath the basket with my legs crossed with this 30-pound camera on my shoulders. My legs don't cross the way that they used to cross. So I have like one leg crossed and one leg kind of out. Game starts. First play of the game, I have a player follow me. So I protect the camera and I try and grab the player so he doesn't hit the ground. I save him. He says, "Thank you." Then I have security come up to me and tell me I shouldn't have touched the player, which, it makes sense. I guess I shouldn't have touched him, but I just tried to help out. And then there was an issue about my legs not being crossed the way they want them to be crossed. So after trying to battle with leg positions, I'll make a long story short, I ended up with a bruised ego and changing camera positions due to my flexibility. So, it was, I tried to stay out of the way, so I hope this answers the question about staying out of the way. But unfortunately, I did not. So if you don't stay out of the way, your camera position gets changed. And I got to give credit to all those guys that can sit there with the legs crossed for that long. Now, obviously, it's different with a mirrorless camera because it's a little bit lighter than a broadcast camera, but it is awkward to sit there. It's uncomfortable. Like you've done NBA games like that. Have you ever been in that position?
Yeah. A bit less rules than what you've been through. Like I didn't have to. Mine were more like not exhibition, but because it was international, it was just like less. It wasn't the same people running it basically, but yeah, same camera position, and it is uncomfortable because, like you, I'm past past my prime, and it's not as easy to stay in that position for long periods of time. And you're on a hard floor, and you're trying to be stable as well. It's not a position, even when a mirrorless camera, like it's not a position that you used to film in. So you're not the most stable, especially if you're uncomfortable. So it's not super easy, but yeah, I think the lesson, and in all seriousness, if you're gonna if you want to film basketball at that level, probably stretch once in a while and get your body ready, because yeah, it is you're sitting there in an awkward position for hours. So if you want to be able to do it in a way that won't affect your stability or your shots or get you kicked out of the game, get the stretching.
I didn't get kicked out of the game. I just went back to my original camera that I was supposed to be on, by the way. And the NBA is coming back to Montreal with G League games. So I will sign up for some yoga classes to make sure I can cross my legs. Because, guys, I will tackle this. I will do one game from that position just to prove to myself that I can still do it. But it's uncomfortable, and it's hard filming and being focused when you're uncomfortable. So it wasn't a bad thing that I had to change positions, but it was kind of funny. Everybody was laughing at me, and yeah, it did bruise my ego a bit because that's something that I never actually thought would happen. That I changed camera positions because I'm older, not flexible, maybe a little bit heavier than I used to be. So yeah, there's some life changes to get back in that camera position. So I'll be doing some stretching, some yoga, and some I guess some cardio.
Well, if that's what motivates the new you, then it's all good.
Yeah.
That's how
All
it
right. So
starts.
next question. Hopefully that did I answer the question, I guess? Yeah. Pretty
I
much.
think so.
Yeah. All right. So next question. This is a question we get asked all the time, right? How do you price your services as a sports videographer?
I figure out what it's going to cost me, and then I double it. No, well, kind of like not necessarily the doubling part, but I think the key is just to figure out what it's costing you. First of all, your equipment, your time in terms of like traveling, that sort of thing, but also like what is it like for you? Because I usually price per project. Look, I don't really have like an hourly rate. Filming wise, I'll have like a half day rate. Well, filming and editing, I'll have like a half day rate and a daily rate. And so based on the project, I'll just quote for, okay, this is going to take, well, it's going to be a 1 day shoot, probably 3 days of editing. This is the cost, and then you are factoring like equipment and traveling if there is any. But yeah, it's just figuring out what your time is worth would be the main thing, because that's what I think most, especially beginners, are insecure about. They don't want to charge too much. They think that they've got a bit of an imposter syndrome, and then the client's going to be the first one to say like, "Oh, wait, that's way too expensive," and because they're hoping to get something done for like $100, and so you kind of feel bad, and you're trying to meet them because you don't want to lose them as a client. But at the end of the day, if you're going to spend the entire time working on this project feeling like you're getting screwed because at this point you're making like $2 an hour, then it's not worth it. First of all, it's frustrating for you, and you're not going to be putting in your best because you're going to be annoyed and tired of still working on that project after so many hours. And also, it's just gonna if you commit to working on something that's not really making you much money, then that's like another client could come along and you won't be able to make that job that could pay you decent money because you're already committed to this one. So make sure that every job that you take on, especially if it's going to take a while, that it's actually worth doing financially. So yeah, the to summarize, just figure out. When I say figure out, it's just for you, like how much is it worth it for you to dedicate like a whole day to something, like, and if you're willing to do it for $100, that's fine. But if that's your full-time gig, and it's, it's obviously different for someone who's just doing this on the side and someone doing this full time. If you're doing this full time, then you want to make sure that you can pay your bills and stuff. And it's usually people who do this on the side that tend to go like, oh, whatever, I'm happy with a few $100s. But when you spend like 4 or 5 or 6 weekends in a row, because during the week you have an actual job, and you spend all your time in the evenings and weekends trying to fulfill all these jobs that you took on because they were cheap, so people were happy to pay you, you start feeling like, you all your time is going into this and you're not really getting that much in return. It can get very frustrating. So yeah, you just gotta value your time, and once you figured out what's it worth for you to dedicate half a day or a full day towards something, then I get a brief from the client, I quote based on my rate, and then we go from there. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, I basically do what you do too, but I'll just explain it a little differently. So figure out your hourly rate for you. Okay. So let's say, well, I'll throw some numbers since we never really say numbers. I'll throw some numbers. So say you want to charge $100 an hour. And the reason why you're charging $100 an hour, if you rent your camera, if you rent an FX3, what is this, like $250, $300 for the day, right? So you gotta take in your equipment, your time, your travel time, all that stuff. So let's just say $100 an hour. So your day rate is $800 a day. Okay. So you got to figure out now, how many days is this project going to take? So you're filming a game, that's say half a day, and then say 2.5 days of edit. So that's 3 days. So that's, or let's go 4 days. It's easier. So that's $3,200, let's say. Okay. So if you're billing by the project, you could be like, okay, I'll do that project for $3,000. Yes, it's $200 off your hourly rate, but you'll probably make that up if you're faster at editing. So you kind of have an idea of how to start submitting like prices for projects, like when you bid on projects, if you have to bid on projects. So you kind of work backwards, I find. So I'll look at how long is this going to take me, and then I'll subtract. And then for some reason, if I have a client, so say 4 hours is $3,200, okay, and now they want, I don't know, that twice a month. So it'd be
4 days.
60, yeah, 4 days. So they want 8 days a month, say, okay? So what I would do is I would figure out a retainer deal and say, okay, instead of charging them $6,400 a month, maybe I charge them $5,000 a month. So they feel like they're getting a deal. And now I know I have a contract for the next, say, 3 months where I'm not chasing people for money. I'm not chasing for work. I know this is guaranteed. And I kind of look at it like a full-time job. Yes, I'm taking a little bit of a discount on what I would normally charge on my hourly rate, but my hourly rate is usually higher when it's a one and done, when it's a one-time contract, when I'm just working with this person one time. But now that I know I'm working with this person for 3 months, I can give them a bit of rebate, and I'm still doing very, very well. And I don't mind putting in the extra time because I'm not so rushed. My back isn't against the wall. I have the 3 months to get all these projects done. So these are different ways that you could look at it, but you have to really figure out your starting point. So give yourself a number, an hourly rate, and then work from there. And once you know what that day rate is you want, then you could say, so say my day rate is $800, like we said. Well, my half a day rate is $550. And I always suggest having your half day rate not half of what your full day rate is, more, because at the end of the day, when you give a half day rate, your whole day is gone. You
Yeah.
never really, it's very rare that I run to another shoot. I have in the past, and those are great days. Don't get me wrong. 9 out of 10 times, you won't be having double bookings like that. So
Mhm.
make sure your day rate, your half day rate, a little bit more than half of your day rate.
And also when you have a half day, right? Usually it's like a game, for example, you're filming. You still have to send all that footage to the team or the client, whatever. So that also, I have to load it in and then put everything on my computer, and then from the computer, like, go to their frame.io or whatever it is that I can upload it. So there's time spent there too.
Yeah. And honestly, not chasing for the money for me is the biggest thing. So I don't mind giving that discount if I'm not chasing, because it's very, very hard sometimes to get paid. Um, and if I do have a contract like that, I bill them first. So I basically tell them, okay, if we're going to do this project, and I call it an investment, okay, the investment starts on this date. So as soon as they pay, then we start the project. And that's a trust thing. So the longer you work with clients, the easier that is. Obviously, your first time they call you or you meet them, it's tough. So you can always do half and half. Like, oh, here, I'll bill you half now, I'll bill you half later. And I also give for retainer deals, I also give clients discounts if they pay the full retainer up front. Like, I'll give you a 15% discount because it's just less work for me, and then I can focus on other things instead of billing
Yeah.
and chasing and stuff like that. Now, that's not for everybody. Some people need every one of those cents coming in. But I try and this way, if I know I got paid already, I'm in that project 100%. I'm ready to go, because there's nothing worse than working your ass off on a project and then you're chasing a client for money because they've already got everything they need. Now you need to be paid. So that's something that you learn as you go, and it's something, the more you work with people, the more they're willing to pay in advance.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Very
All right.
solid.
So we're done with money. We're ready for the next question. I'll let you ask this question, Lee, since I usually ask you.
All right. So, how do you work with teams and coaches to get access for filming?
Usually I start with an email or an in-person conversation, and I just ask them straight up, like, hey, I want to film this, or I'm looking to get this content. And I really reassure them that, like, I'm not here to show any bad stuff. Like, if I'm covering a team or following a team, I let them know, like, I'm on your side. So it's all positive stuff I'm looking for. Like, if something happens in the locker room that is bad or whatever, that's not getting aired, and I let them know that they can have the footage after. If I'm doing it, if I'm working for a team, they can have all the footage after I'm done with it. But I reassure them that I'm part of the team and I'm here to support, and I'm here to make them look good. So I want them to be transparent with me, but I also want them to be able to trust me. So I think that's the first thing I do, is I try to make sure that there's trust, there's communications, and I let them know that, hey, we're on the same side. I'm trying to make you guys look good. So don't worry. You guys just do whatever you got to do. And if there's anything that you guys don't want in the videos or you don't want to be seen, I'm going to take that out. No questions asked.
Well, I'll for access per se, like I made a video about this actually. Like I usually it's send an email, like you said. Like, I'm assuming we're talking about, I'm not looking to get paid. I just want access to film and sort of have my own content. So I'll offer, like you said, to give them access to my footage, so that way it's sort of a free cameraman that they get at the same time. And more broadly, I'd say, like, just to say something different than what you said, I'll go in another direction where the key is also talking to the right person. So that email or that message, I would not try to target the videographer or someone whose job it is to film at the games, because someone like that will most likely feel threatened by someone else coming in and filming, especially if they have a look at your portfolio and they think that you're actually quite good at what you do, maybe potentially better than they are. So the person that you want to talk to is the person who's gonna feel like who's gonna really gain something from you being there and helping out with an extra camera. So it's the maybe every team's, depending on the size of the team, like, they work a bit differently, but it's either the operations manager or the PR sort of person, the communication and media manager or the social media manager. So sometimes you reach out to one and say, oh, maybe just talk to the other type of thing. But yeah, you want to talk to a manager, not someone that's on the floor with a camera in their hands, because a manager will have a team of videographers working for them. So having one more for free does sound like a good deal. And you obviously want to have a portfolio ready and easy to go through. So like an Instagram page, for example, is ideal because they'll most likely have an Instagram account, and it's going to be easy for them to just go on that link. The app opens, they go through your videos, and they're like, oh yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. So yeah, let's do this. Free footage for us, access for him or her, and let's get this done. But yeah, and actually in my video, I'm not going to go through it now, but I do have like a little template email that I send to teams and well, to managers and stuff. So yeah, if you want to see what that looks like, go watch the video.
We'll put a link in the description.
Yes.
Is this on your YouTube channel, by the way?
Yes, Beyond the Game.
There you go.
It's very popular. If you're not watching, you're missing out.
That's it. All right. Next question. What's the difference between filming for social media versus broadcast?
The two main ones would be the size of the camera and the fact that in one of them you're always live when you're filming, and the other one you're not. So a lot less pressure, and both literally and metaphorically less pressure on your shoulders. So yeah, but yeah, I think that's really it. Like, I think if you're broadcast, then obviously when you're filming, you're live. So zooming is handled a different way. That the equipment is different. You have to stability in your camera position and in everything. All the equipment that you're using is paramount. Where with social media, it's more versatility. That's the priority. Like you probably want to be able to go anywhere, film from anywhere. You probably maybe you have a bag with a couple different lenses in there, so you can change depending on where you are and what you're capturing. You want to have different angles. And when you're filming, you have more of a creative sort of mindset where you're trying to create shots that look cool. Where broadcast, you're mostly just trying to get the action and make sure that when people watch through a camera, they get what's going on. It's not like, ooh, it's just one guy like looking cool. It's like, all right, good, but where's everything else? Where are the other players? Where's the basket? Where's the I want some context. So there's a lot more stuff is in focus when you're filming for broadcast. There's no blurry backgrounds that much. What is your answer? Do you have anything else that I didn't?
Yeah, for sure. Well, so look, social media, you're sharing the experience, you're sharing the play. Broadcast, you're sharing the game. So broadcast, it's very serious. You have a pre-game meeting. Everyone has their positions. You have a job to do. They'll give you like a list sometimes. Say for basketball the other day, we had a list of player headshots, so you know who everybody is. So when they're talking about them, you got to go get this player because the commentator's talking about this, talking about that. When you're shooting for social media, you have a lot more flexibility. You could take risks. You can miss a play here or there. The idea is you're shooting that stuff to make an edit after. When you're doing broadcast, it's live. Yes, there are mistakes. Yes, things go wrong at times. But 98% of the time, you got to be focused. You got to make sure you get the shot. You got to be almost robotic. Like, okay, this is my job. This is my angle. I'm making sure that I get every play from this angle. And yeah, I mean, there's times where you could miss stuff and that, but the second you miss it, someone's going to tell you in your ear, hey, Lance, you missed that shot, or hey, next time, make sure you get the guy cutting this way. So you basically have someone watching over you the whole time. When you're doing for social media, if you miss a shot, that shot's not going in your video. It's no big deal. Nobody knows. Broadcast, everybody knows. So there is a pressure. And I remember one of my first times when I was doing an expo game, and when that red light comes on, which means your tally light, which tells you you're live, and you're like, oh my God, everyone's seeing my camera angle, you know? So you're constantly thinking about focus, you're constantly making sure your zooms are smooth, your pans are smooth, and you have to be really, really stable. It's nerve wracking, but as you get used to it and as you keep going, it becomes second nature. Now I don't even like, I know my tally light's on, but it doesn't change the way I feel. I don't feel nervous anymore than that. But the first couple times, yeah, it's nerve wracking. Where when you're holding a mirrorless camera and you're filming it, if you shake a bit or if you mess up a bit or if you miss the play, you just don't show it. So having that accountability is I find that the biggest difference. Um, I do find though, the game goes by faster for me when I'm using my mirrorless than when I'm doing broadcasts. Because I'm doing broadcasts, I'm on all the time. I'm looking at the clock more, stuff like that. When you're doing mirrorless, you get to move around more. You get a lot more flexibility. I find the game goes a lot faster when I'm a mirrorless because I might not be filming as much of the game because other things are going on. Where when I'm filming for broadcast, you have scheduled TV timeouts, you have scheduled times to get crowd shots. You know exactly what you're going to be doing the next shot. So that's the really difference, really mentally. Where a basketball game, say for instance, goes by so fast when you're just filming for social media, but when you're filming for broadcast, it feels longer because every part of that job is calculated.
It's interesting because I'm sort of the opposite, where if I'm filming just by myself with my mirrorless camera, I'm trying to do so many different things that to me feels longer than having one specific job at one camera position, and I'm covering certain area, and that's pretty much standard sort of work. And like you said, I know, okay, next time I'm doing this. It's like I know exactly what I'm supposed to do, and I'm doing one thing at a time. Or when I'm filming for social media purposes or whatever with my mirrorless camera, there's so many things I could be doing in that moment that I'm overthinking everything, and to me that feels longer that way. And also towards the end, I'm always wondering, can I leave early? And, is it really going to make a difference and avoid the crowd? Where if I'm filming for the game, obviously I'm staying till the end. But with
Yeah,
the
broadcast you
last
can't
five
leave. You
minutes
can't
of a
leave early.
football game, huh?
Can't leave early.
Yeah.
Every every sport though has a different length. Like it's weird. Like so in the NHL, the game starts at 7. I know that game is over by 9:45, 10 o'clock.
Mm,
You do an Alouettes game or a CFL game. Game starts at 7. You're out of there by 10:30.
yeah.
But you do MLB, you never know. There's no clock in baseball.
Mm,
So I did one game at 2 hours and 5 minutes. I did a 17 inning game one time.
mm,
So that's tricky too because every sport has different time lengths. So some sports feel longer than others.
definitely, especially football. Well,
It's
Australian sports were worse, so I can't really complain. Well, not all of them. Soccer is pretty quick, or rugby. Is it? No, is it the other way around? No, it is. Yeah, no, rugby takes a while.
I never did rugby. All right, so next question. This is actually we did an episode on this question, but it's how do you get creative while still meeting expectations of clients and teams?
I'd say, like, for me, that question, I'm more thinking like, how do I? Because like expectations of clients, I'm thinking like, I better get the shot, sort of thing. Like if a player scores, if something good happens, I better have that shot, well framed in focus. So how do I get creative still with the pressure of making sure I capture everything when it happens, sort of thing? Like that's more what I would be concerned about. So it's so to that question that I just made up, I would answer. I basically take calculated risks. So like I know roughly not that I know what's going to happen, but I try to anticipate what's going to happen, stay a little bit wider, and position myself, because a lot of the time, like the difference between a cinematic shot and just a very plain looking shot is just the composition. So where like if I'm outdoors trying to position myself in comparison, like with the sun, try to if I can position myself in a way that the sunlight hits a bit differently, um, or just go from a low angle to make sure I capture their full bodies, just things like that. If I like football, for example, if I'm behind the end zone, I'm always a bit concerned, not concerned, but like I try to make the goalposts. Like I try to, I don't want to have like half. I don't want to have half of it in my shot, so I try to frame it so that it's either out or fully in. I try to, or maybe it's on the right, and then the action's obviously going to come in on the left because it's like a 2 yard run. I know that I know where they're going. Everybody knows where they're going, and so yeah, so I try to frame those shots so that they look good. So that's my way of being creative. Like I'm not trying to overdo the out of focus, like shallow depth of field, things like that. Like that can mess up a very critical shot. I'm more trying to use the composition to be creative. Would be my answer.
Yeah, that's a good answer actually. My
Uh-huh.
thing to manage client expectations is okay. Open my communication right away. Figure out what are my clients looking for. Once I have an idea what they're looking for, then I'm gonna pre-plan. So like you, I'm gonna pre-plan some shots with nice composition that I know I could use in my video no matter what. Because the way I look at game actions is you can't control game action. You can't control if it's gonna be a high scoring game or a low scoring game, but I can control the shots that the money shots say in warm up or of players on the bench or players during timeout or players talking to each other. Those I can control. Those I know I can get nice cinematic shots that I can use throughout my edit. So I make sure I have a bank of those and then I let the action dictate whatever that action happens on that field or on the playing surface. Now, choosing your camera angle to make that edit more dramatic or more dynamic is key. So that's something that comes with practice, but that's something that I do try to play out. So you got to know your sport. So in hockey, I know where I am. I know what kind of angles I'm getting. I know where the goals are going to be if they score. So I'm ready for those shots. So I try to set myself up for success in that way. But the easiest thing to do to meet client expectations is talk to them, find out, pick their brain a bit. Like, hey, what kind of reels do you like, or what kind of videos do you like? What kind of music are you guys into, or are you looking for? And then I look for something similar or of that genre, or something that I know is going to help my approval process faster. Because there's nothing worse than doing a killer edit to a great song or to a great hype video, and they look at it like we like it, but it's not really what we were looking for today. So make sure you're on that page with them and make sure that you know what they're looking for, and everything else you'll figure out as you go, because it's sports, right? You can control what you can control. Everything else, just film it and be safe. Make sure you get to play, because yes, everybody's stressed about missing the plays, but you don't have to. You're not going to have time to show all the plays anyway, even if you get them all. So don't be worried. Make sure you get the shots you need.
Good point. Next question. Hopefully, we'll this time I think our answers will be a bit shorter because it's a pretty straight up question. If we want to get through all of these, we need
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
speed up.
We're doing okay.
Um,
We're halfway. We're halfway. Oh no, we're not.
yeah, yeah, that's true. So, what's the process of obtaining licensing for music in your sports videos? So, my short answer to that would be if you're posting strictly on like Instagram and TikTok, I would just use anything and well, anything that's licensed in those platforms, and then yeah, use the track from the platform so that you don't get any copyright issues. But the good thing is that you can use mainstream music. If it's gonna go anywhere else, I would just get a license like I do with a platform like Artlist or Epidemic Sound or something like that. If you want mainstream music still, there's a website called Licked, I think. Yeah, Licked. And they have mainstream music, but it's a much smaller library. And you can the price varies depending on the size of your channel, and obviously, and also like it's not. I'm sure there is a price if you want to do it for clients, but I think like the basic sort of thing is that you pay a fee. Well, now there's a subscription model, but like the few times that I used it, I would pay like $30 or something for one track, and I can use that track in one video. So it's not like you buy a Drake track and then you can use it with your clients and life is good. Because even when you put it in your videos on YouTube, it's gonna get a copyright claim straight away. But there's a code that you put like in the description, and then you send. You also have to forward the link to your video to to the people at the lick, like to their support sort of staff, and then they get it basically approved, and then that claim goes away. Within, I was going to say within an hour, but depends on the time of day because I think they're based in London or somewhere in Europe anyway. So yeah, these are sort of the options out there. What do you use?
Well, first of all, I'm surprised using Drake because usually your go-to is Justin Bieber. So
True.
I'm impressed that you've upgraded a bit
Baby,
too.
baby, baby.
um, I get a yeah, I get a music license, so Artlist, even Motion Array has some stuff, and Vato
Mm.
or just Audio Jungle stuff like that. I definitely think,
Audio jungle.
yeah, I definitely have a subscription to that. Now, my rule of thumb is this: if I'm giving it to a client, I say, "Where's this video going?" And I'll try and push towards one of my subscriptions. This way, I know they are covered because there's nothing worse than a client coming back to you and saying, "Hey, the music's not playing on my video," or "I got this blocked," and that. So I really make sure. So like when I do corporate stuff, they're getting something from my subscription 100%. 100%. If I'm doing reel in that, it's different. Now we can use mainstream music now for reels. My hack is I check on Instagram. I put the song that I want to use in Instagram and see who else has used it. And then usually I'll do a screen recording of that song and then I'll throw that in my timeline. So I already know that version's been approved. And it's a quick little hack. It's annoying to do a screen recording, then do a transfer to my computer and then back. But hey, sometimes that's what you got to do. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I'd say also like now, more and more teams will have their own subscriptions. So I know I worked with when I worked with the PWHL, they had their own subscription to I can't remember which music platform, but so they would just send me the login and say, use just log in into our account, pick a track, and then use it to edit the video. So that way, they know 100% they're covered and they're good to go.
Yeah, actually,
Which is
Hockey Canada, they usually send me they have a link, an audio bank, and they send me a link and say, okay, go in here and pick a song. Here's a group of songs, pick one of these for your video,
mhm.
which is nice when companies do that and they're already prepared for that because there's nothing worse than getting music claims. It sucks. It just holds back your project, right?
Yeah. And it's something that, like, if a team or a company has a videographer, if they're doing videos on the regular, they're probably on top of that stuff. But it's more when you're working with people who don't necessarily produce a lot of video content, that's the ones that are a bit, they need you to help them with that.
All right, so now we're transitioning into post-production questions.
Ooh,
Obviously, we already know what your editing software is, but it says
Lightroom.
what is your go-to editing software or tools for sports videography? So why don't we talk about tools since everyone knows that we usually talk about Adobe Premiere anyway. That's what kind of we use all the time. What tools would you suggest going with your Adobe Premiere?
Not much.
No?
No, it's not true. I use the Adobe Suite in a sense that, like, I use Photoshop if I have to do any type of graphics. I use After Effects, obviously, if I want to do any type of graphic animation, or just add anything on top, or do keying like on a green screen, something like that, rotoscoping. Um, and I use Audition if I have to clean my audio. Although now with the, like, in Premiere, this, because that's the thing. Like, Premiere now has more and more tools from After Effects, more and more tools from uh, Audition. So now you less and less need to go out of it, really. But so I do use Audition mostly if it's like for noise reduction. Like, there's a really, you can sort of pinpoint like a little moment where no one's talking and just say, like, this is noise, and it's going to do a really good job at removing it from your entire clip. Where if you do that in Premiere, there's just like a noise reductor effect that you put on a clip, and then you just say, use it at 10% or 20%, you know, intensity, and that's just not as good because it doesn't pinpoint the exact frequencies that you're after. But other than that, not much. I'm trying to think on the fly, like Catalyst Browse if I need to stabilize something, but that's only if the warp stabilizer in Premiere doesn't really do it, then I'll go to Catalyst Browse. I think that's it. Am I missing something?
Yeah, you are. You're missing something big. So one of the tools that I use is the Ultimate Sports bundle that you can find on beyondthegame.com.
I was thinking
No, okay, all
software.
joking aside, E sent me his LUT
BeyondTheGame.tv, by
packs.
the way.
Yeah. It's .tv, sorry. E sent me his LUT packs, and they're really good. They're
Yes.
really, really good. I really like the 30 for 30. I like the YMCA one too. So I'm finding myself using them more and more. The sound effects are pretty good too. Those little tools really help your edit. And that's the thing. Yes, you have your software. You need your Premiere Pro or your After Effects Edition, all that stuff. But the little plugins and that you can add, your little tools, they definitely do make a big difference. And they speed up the process. That's why I use them. So I highly suggest using those LUTs in that, because if you are filming in S-Log3, they help your color processing way faster. And
Yeah.
it's hard. Color is hard.
Yeah.
So any tool that I can use that can speed up my production, I'm going to use. So yes, I'm giving you a shout out, E, but yes, it is very, very
Thank
good.
you.
But I was laughing. I was waiting for you to say it. I gave you a perfect segue to plug one of
It's
that.
true. I was thinking software. I was just like,
Uh, No,
didn't
I said tools. And
yeah.
to go back to one other thing, Catalyst Browse, I don't use it as much as I should. And I was telling E before the show how I used it the other day in a project. And Warp Stabilizer is great, but you do sometimes get that little weird wavy kind of look
Yeah.
on your footage.
Wobble.
Catalyst Browse, you don't get that at all. It's perfect. It's just it takes time because I have the free version. I have to go clip by clip. So I do my raw edit. Once I find the spot I want, then I'll send that to Catalyst Browse and I'll re-export it, and it's complete. It's so worth it. It's so worth it. So it's such a huge tool to smooth out your clips. So I highly recommend Catalyst Browse and eSports Bundle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
You're
while
welcome.
we're on the subject of using Catalyst Browse, which takes more time, what about what's the question? How do you handle post production when working with a tight deadline? Do you sort of use less of those tools? Is that the way to go, or do you simplify your edits?
I'm going to try and simplify stuff. I'm going to use those tools. So look, if I have those tools, I have my sound effects already in one spot. I have my looks already in one spot. I have transitions in one spot. So those tools are saving me time. Now, the other things that I know that you have to know before when you have a tight deadline is while I'm filming, film with a purpose. Don't just film everything. Film the shots you need to cut down on the editing time, because there's nothing worse than putting in that card and you have 250 clips and you have a day to edit something or a couple hours to edit something. You don't know what's good and what's bad. So film with purpose. Film with what you need and pre-edit in your head as you're going, and that will definitely speed up your process.
That's a good point.
I don't do that. I don't always do. I overshoot like crazy all the time. Okay, guys. I overshoot. Like I'm like, oh, maybe I'll use this later on. Maybe I'll do this. You got to get better at shooting what you need.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that was going to be my answer as well. Like, shooting to edit is definitely the best way to save yourself some time. Also, if you already have a music track in mind or a bit of a flow to the video in mind, then also it helps you to shoot to edit basically, because now you know exactly what you need to make that video happen. And you know which frame rate you should be in, and you already know if you're going to slow down everything or not, and knowing which shot you want to maybe speed ramp because that was the shot, there was a touchdown and you got it great, and you'll be able to play around with it. That's going to be sort of your hero shot, so you're going to put it in that spot of that music track that you already picked. So yeah, doing things in advance like that, like having a bit of an idea in your mind before you even start shooting, is going to make the editing process way faster. And on the technical side, then maybe it's not shooting in S-Log3, like shooting in S-Cinetone or something that you can just use straight out of the camera with no coloring whatsoever. Obviously exposing properly for it as well. But yeah, and keeping your like for audio, for example, like maybe it's obviously you want to have like I like in Premiere, there's like a preset, not a preset, like a template thing. Like when you create a new project, now you can save like already like default templates for like social media. So when you open your new project and you use the social media template, for example, there's already like a vertical sequence, a portrait sequence, all these different things, and they have like little margin things to let you know where to put what. But I created a template where all my sound effects are already there. Like you said, like, you know, everything's ready to go. Like my sound effects are there. Like for my YouTube videos, like all my call to action, my end slide, and like all those types of graphics, they're all already there. My sequence already created. I've got folders, even though they're empty, like there's already like a footage folder, audio folder, all these things. So, and you can, even if you don't have Premiere, you could create, because I get asked that sometimes, like from people who buy my bundle. It's like, oh, can I import these things into my editing software so I have to, or do I really have to import them into every single project every time? Well, what you should do really is create a project where you import everything and then save that as your sort of template project. So every time you start a new project, instead of just creating a new project, you just take that one, copy and paste it, give it a new name, and then start from there. So that way you just saved you the time of importing all your assets into the project every single time. You just copy and paste that same original project and go from there. You know what I mean? That's also a time saver.
Yeah, great time saver. Look at you, E. No, but honestly, when you open your project and everything's already there, all your sound effects, your looks, all that, your timeline,
Yeah,
you just saved 5 minutes right there. And then when you're against the wall, those 5 minutes make a big difference.
Sometimes.
Yeah. All right. So next question. How do you ensure color consistency across different cameras and environments?
My very short answer to that would be to shoot and log. But because other than that, well, that, and if we're talking multiple cameras like filming simultaneously, I would say have a little conversation before the game. Like everybody, we're talking different shooters, or even if it's just you, just set up all your cameras in a way that, you know, color temperature is the same, shutter speed is roughly the same, you know, like all these little things, the bit rate, that everything's sort of as close as possible. Even if we're shooting like one's on Canon, the other one's on Sony, if the exposure settings are roughly the same and the color temperature is roughly the same, then it's going to be a lot easier to try to match it in post. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty close. And when I say it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be perfect to you and maybe other videographers who are really paying attention. But for most people, especially on the phone, it's going to be this. Yeah, it's going to match.
Yeah, white balance. White balance is key. So I downloaded that app, by the way, AI Kev on your phone. It was $4. That one of our viewers had suggested a couple weeks ago. Jeremy had suggested.
Oh, yeah.
I actually got it. I tried it. It's very, very good, and it's pretty accurate. It's not exact, but it's close enough. But you're working with multiple people, multiple cameras. Color temperature is key, and you're right. Log will definitely help because you could definitely push those colors a lot more. So make sure if you know you guys are all on the same page. Frame rates, color, white balance, all that. That's the key thing. And worst case, in your editing software, you're going to have to spend a little bit more time and you're going to have to change the white balance and get it to match, you know, because you want to do as less work as possible. So try and have that in-camera color as close to perfect as you can.
Next question, I feel like is pretty similar to the one before. What strategies can help improve efficiency during post-production?
So rewind to 5 minutes ago when E said how he sets up his timeline and his project template, and you're good to go, okay?
It sounds about right. I answered two questions in one. So sometimes I make up my own questions. Sometimes I mix questions. You know, that's how I roll.
It's okay. Hey, these are viewer questions. So we're just happy that the viewers actually wrote them. We do try and put one or two in the end of our shows, but we don't have time to get to all of them. So
yeah. All right. So next, actually, we're switching categories again. So now we're
Oh,
in career insights, sports fails, final advice.
ooh,
That sounds
we're getting
dramatic.
to the end of our questions. Look at us.
All right. So, what are some of the most memorable projects you've worked on?
So hockey, I've done so many, right? So, from drafts to all-star games to Stanley Cup finals, there's so many in hockey. But one project that reaches out to me the most is when I met GSP before one of his fights. He's fighting Josh Koscheck, and I got to see the whole day of a UFC fighter, following him from lunchtime till after the fight. And me and you even met up at the after party. So that was probably one of the coolest projects because you don't get to see what it's like to be with a fighter for like 12 hours, say, and you feel the anticipation building up towards that fight and the relief after the fight. So that was a really really cool project, and I was really happy to be a part of it. Um, when I think back to all the things I filmed, that's one of my favorite days.
Nice.
You?
Well, obviously, when I was with the Canadians, the big milestones, like the big the centennial and all that stuff was pretty cool. But I would say, and it's funny, I was reminded of that in a way last night. Like, I think, like for me, the NBA has always been a bit more. Um, like I could be in a locker room, I could have like Sidney Crosby walk past me at an All Star game, and I wouldn't be that starstruck. Like it doesn't. But if LeBron James was in the room, I would probably be a bit giddy and look like a 14-year-old girl. So it's I don't know the NBA. I don't know if it's because it's further away from me. I have less like access to it that when I do, it just feels a bit more exciting to me. And when I was reminded by reminded of it last night, is like I started watching that Prime series, the
Starting five?
NHL thing.
Oh, the NHL one. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, it's all right. I wasn't that into it. And then I started watching Starting Five, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. And in reality, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just that one's about basketball, the other one's about hockey. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I'm more of a basketball fan at heart because there's not really any other difference between the two shows. But yeah, so yeah, in basketball, I'd say that my biggest thing was when I filmed there was like when the U.S. Men basketball team came to Australia to play a couple of games against, 3 games in total, like 2 against Australia and 1 against Canada. And I was involved in this whole thing and filmed like media day, filmed the games, worked with the NBA and all that sort of stuff. So that was really cool.
I do have one other moment that is not, it's work related, but it's not the actual sport. So I was filming one hockey game, and I turned to my left and I spent the whole game beside Ben Stiller. So we talked the whole game. He didn't know that much about hockey. He said he went to a lot of Rangers games, but he was always in a lodge and always socializing. So it was the first time he actually really sat and watched a game. So he asked me about a lot of the rules and stuff like that. And then, of course, all the TV stations realized he was there, so they kept putting me and him on TV. Well, they were putting him. I would just happen to be
Yeah, I was
beside
gonna
him.
say.
But during intermission, he stayed in his seat and we chatted. So my brother texts me and says, "So, you gonna ask him for a selfie?" And he read my message. And when I got off, he goes, "So, we gonna take that selfie?" So I took a selfie with him from that position. So
Did
that
he
was
do
kind of
like a
cool.
Zoolander type
Yeah. I did Blue Steel.
pose?
But that was kind of cool watching a game with Ben Stiller and chatting him up. And he was in Montreal for a production. So it was kind of nice to meet him and see, like, he was just a regular guy and he was interested in hockey and learning about the game. So that was another cool moment that it wasn't me actually. It was just me doing my regular job, just talking to someone sitting beside me.
So it was more fun having Ben Stiller sitting next to you or me sitting next to you while you're working? Which
Whew.
one was more exciting?
The conversation's definitely a lot different with you than it was with Ben Stiller. I had to be on my best behavior with Ben Stiller. So
Mm.
I'll say you, E. I'll say you. Okay.
There was no
But you and I
selfie
just
at
get in
the end
trouble
of
when we
being.
sit beside each other. No, I wasn't in trouble when Ben Stiller was sitting beside me.
Good point. Good point.
All right.
All right.
Next question. What advice would you give someone just starting out in sports videography?
My advice would be to not expect to just go from doing it for fun, uh, to go from doing it for fun to doing it for money in a couple months. Take your time with it, practice, 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 but also don't overthink it. Like, don't think that you need to get the camera that you want in order to start, and don't think that because you have a shitty camera or because you're filming with your phone and it doesn't look as crisp and as amazing as what you're seeing on Instagram, that means that your videos are no good. Like, there's videos with super low quality that still are very fun to watch because they're creative, they're entertaining. The one thing that I'd say, like, compare yourself with others is creativity. If you can see other videos like having like fast cuts and a lot of things going on, and it's just like, close-ups, wide things, it's like, I don't care if you're zooming in 500% in post and the shot looks a bit shit. If it adds creatively speaking, if it adds something to zoom in post and just sacrifice quality, by all means do it. Just be creative, have fun with it, because if you're lazy with that stuff, that you're never going to learn, you're never going to get better. Like, if you feel like, if you watch other people's video and they sort of look like that, and then you watch yours and the shots are 2-3 times longer than their shots, then that's probably why your videos are not getting as many views. So just try to speed it up, be creative, have different perspective, different, like, a lot of variety in all these different aspects, and just do it, rinse and repeat. Just do it, do it, do it, practice, practice, practice. And then eventually, when you've saved up some money, then you can worry about equipment. But at the start, my first advice would be just go nuts and practice.
Yeah, you have to practice. Go film amateur sports as much as you can for fun. You gotta loves filming. Like, it's not for everybody. It sounds like this glamorous, glorious job. It's not. You're hustling, you're running, you're going from arena to field. So my suggestion is, if you want to get into it, go to minor sports, figure out what angles you need, figure out where you want to be, what the game looks like to you through your phone or your camera, because the game looks different. So you got to figure all that stuff out and practice. The more practice you do, the better you will get, the better understanding you will have of sports videography. So just go out there and record.
Now, next question: how important is networking in the sports videography industry?
I think it's the most important thing. And it's something that I did not understand when I was younger. And I've said this many times on the show. I used to go to work and think like, I'm here to do my work and go home, and that's it, and not talk and not just do what I got to do and go. And then you realize, no, you got to talk to the communications person or the PR person or the trainer or the ball boy or whoever, and you just be friendly and talk to everybody, because those people will help you out later on. Whether it's with, hey, this is going down today, or here's a good spot, come here. You'll end up getting information that you didn't know you needed. And it's weird in this industry. People change sports, people change teams, people change where they work all the time. And later on, they can contact you and be like, hey, Lance, we need someone to film tonight to this basketball game. Would you be interested? So, and that's because I met them in a different sport, but they remembered me. They remembered I was nice. They remembered I was pleasant. They remembered I did a good job. So networking is key. So everybody you meet, treat them with respect, be helpful, be friendly, and it's going to go a long, long way.
I agree. Honestly, nothing to add. That was pretty, summed it up very well. So now, since you're on the roll, what what's the biggest mistake beginner sports videographers make?
The number one mistake is not, well, that you can make, is not pressing the record button. Okay. That's the number one mistake. And every guy's made it. So that's like a technical thing. Make sure that that record light is always on, because you will somewhere throughout your career get into an instance where you think you're recording and you didn't. But I think the biggest mistake that people do is not admitting when they make a mistake.
Hmm.
Because
Good point.
there's nothing, everybody messes up. So if something happens, if you break a piece of equipment that's not yours, or say you missed an interview, or your audio isn't working, or something, admit it. Because I've worked with people one time where we're doing an interview and the sound's not working on the guy, and everyone's too afraid to tell the player, like, hey, we have to redo it. So if there's a mistake or there's a problem, tell people right away and try and fix that right away. And I think that's the biggest misconceptions. Sometimes you work with these athletes. I'm obviously talking about higher level athletes. You work with these athletes and you feel like they're unapproachable, or you have to get everything perfect the first time. You don't. If you're trying to get the best shot and for some reason this guy, his mic's not working or the camera's not in 100% focus, you think, for that last question, own up to it, ask to redo it. There's no big deal. It's video. We're not saving lives. You try to do the best you can. So for me, the biggest mistake is not admitting when you make a mistake.
Yeah, for me, I'll go back to a bit to what I was saying earlier about don't focus on gear. I think that's the a big mistake that beginners do, is just to focus too much on it. Like so many people like ask me, for example, like, because the ZV-10 is sort of the cheapest sort of budget camera that I would recommend for sports videography, and then I get people concerned about what's it called, like the wobble thing when you're panning from left to right, like
Oh, shutter roll,
yeah. So
rolling
rolling
shutter.
shutter. So yeah, so they're like, oh, but what about rolling shutter? What about this? Like, who cares? Like, honestly, just grab a camera and a lens and film. Like, it doesn't matter. Even if there is a bit of rolling shutter when you pan super quick on that one shot that for some ridiculous reason you're gonna want to keep. Because let's be honest, you need to pan very, very fast and in a very strong motion for a rolling shutter to appear. It's not like you're moving like this and then it just. So anyway, all that to say that just don't care about those little things that don't make your camera the best camera in the world. Just be grateful that you have a camera and just use it. Like, don't worry about anything else. And once it's really limiting, like you can tell that it is obviously limiting like what you're trying to do, then yeah, you can think about upgrading. But until that's the case, like most of the time when you're concerned about 4K 120, about rolling shutter, about 2.8 aperture, things like that, it's mostly in your head. Like it's, or obviously it would be nice to have all these things, but it's not what's stopping you in reality. Anyway, let's move on. I know
No,
someone
true,
has
true.
to leave soon.
No. All right. So this next question I kind of already shared, but we'll get into it again. Can you share a sports fail moment, like a bad angle or an issue during filming, and how you overcame it? So I'll let you start, since we already talked about how I can't cross my legs.
Well, mine actually goes back to what you were just saying. Like I did, I think a couple times forget to press record, and so that was definitely terrifying once I went to stop the recording and realized it wasn't started to begin with. And but yeah, like you said, owned up to it, because I've seen even recently people do that and try to weasel their way out of it. Oh, it's not that I didn't record. It's just that I think the files, there was a problem with the car, the transfer, and but now it, the way there's always a way to get a file, so the client's gonna say, oh well, what about this? What if you do that? What if we go to an IT guy? And then you're stuck in that lie, and you're just look dumb because you're running out of excuses. So just own up to it.
I already shared the no crossing legs thing, but I'll give you another example. Mistakes happen all the time in sports and filming. Just the other day, I'm at rehearsals for the Canadians home opener. Now, I'm running from a handheld to back to a tripod, and I go to click my camera into the tripod. So you have a V plate, a V mount for your camera that locks into the tripod. But I have someone talking to me in my headset and have someone else talking to me in the stands. So I'm managing both conversations. Now I think the camera's clicked in the tripod. And now I go to do my shot and the camera falls and I catch it and put it back on. Now I saved it. But little things like that happen all the time. So There's so many sports fails. There's so many moments. Just, try your best to minimize them. Uh, you know, that one I was lucky. I saved the camera. But it doesn't always work that way. So, try and double check things, try and make sure that your audio is working, your power supplied, or, it's happened to me too, where I'm waiting for a guy to do an interview. I'm waiting. And when he finally shows up, guess what? My battery's dying. And now I'm panicking and I'm watching it count down. And I've had a battery die in an interview and I'm like, hey, time out. I gotta switch a battery. And now the player's all annoyed, but I waited for him for 25 minutes ready to go and it drained all the power. So sorry, bud, but this is how it is. So there's so many sports fails that has moments that happen. It's just how do you manage them? How do you handle them? Because you will run into trouble. Nothing ever goes that smoothly. So patience is the key.
Well, great segue into the next question. Like after all waiting, after all these players going through all these fails, with all that patience, how do you stay motivated and inspired after filming all these games?
You gotta love what you do. Like I'm a sports junkie. So I love watching sports. I watch my ESPN or TSN every morning, see what I missed the night before and that, and it's part of me. So filming the games is just second nature. Yes, there are nights where I'm not looking forward to the game. There are nights where we got a birthday party that night, or there's something going on, but I got to go to the film the hockey game, and I'll meet you guys after. But once I'm sitting in my position and my camera's on, I'm excited. I'm ready for puck drop. I'm ready for that game. I'm ready to see what moments lay ahead because it's fun. And I feel privileged. Not everybody gets the chance to work in sports, especially pro sports. It's something we all dream about when we're kids. Especially here in Canada, everybody wants to be a professional hockey player, play in the NHL. Well, I didn't get to play in the NHL. I'm not a good hockey player, but I get to be part of the game in a different way. So that's what keeps me motivated. That's what keeps me going is like, wow, I'm still around these great athletes. I get to see so many things that people can't see. I get to see so many things that I can't talk about on my podcast, but I'm a part of. So I feel privileged. I feel really privileged to be able to work in a job that doesn't feel like a job most of the time.
Totally agree. Again, you summed it up pretty well. If I could add just a little something, I'd say just try to don't get set in your ways, basically. It's a bit different with filming, especially if you're doing broadcast, but like with editing, for example, like just don't do the same. If you feel like you're doing the same edit over and over, maybe it's time to mix things up and try to go to Instagram or other places to find inspiration and try new things and do things a bit differently, get out of your comfort zone, because the worst thing that can happen for a videographer is to be stuck in this sort of rut where you're always filming the same way, you're always editing the same way, and you're just doing like rinse and repeat the same things. And that's when the creativity sort of is taken out of the equation, and then the next thing to leave is the fun part. So yeah, just keep mixing things up and keep it fresh and creative.
Yeah, you got to love what you do, right? So you even look at your YouTube. People are struggling right now on YouTube because it's a grind. It's a lot of work. You're scripting, you're coming up with ideas, you're reaching out to clients, you're reaching out to venues. Can I film here? Can I do this? Can I do that? But you love it. So yes, it's work, but it's not really work for you because that's what you do for a living.
Last question.
Yeah.
That was a great drum roll. What's the best way to maintain client relationships over time? Just like friendships.
Yeah. Kindness. You know what? People that I haven't worked with in a long time, or that I see maybe they're in a new field or whatever through LinkedIn or Facebook, send them a message from time to time. Stay in touch. Keep the communication open. You could just reach out to someone and say hello, or hey, how's it going? Or, oh, I saw you're working on this project. That's so cool. I haven't seen you in so long. Reaching out to people, keeping the communication open is a great way to keep client relations, because you never know when they might need you again, or you might need them maybe. And you've already worked with each other most of the time. you have a friendship, you have a bond, reach out, keep the communication open. You don't have to do it all the time, but from time to time, there's nothing wrong with sending out a nice email sometimes to say, hey, I saw you're doing this. That's really cool. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, and I think it's also good sometimes to give them a little. I was gonna say freebie, not in the sense of like, oh, I'm gonna do this next video for free or things like that, but more like I remember being at a game, filming, and then some activation was going on with the DJ, and I just filmed because the DJ was going off and there was like smoke and stuff, and I just filmed it, and in that moment it made sense, but then after that, I just that raw clip I sent to the sort of like what's their purpose, the sort of game presentation, but like these contractors, and I sent it to them because it's good for their business. It's sort of an activation that they do that looks good, and so like you probably want to use this on your Instagram or something. So like little shots like that. And I remember you mentioned because it's in the episode that we just released this week at the time of this recording, where you're mentioning like giving a drone sort of wide shot to the client that they can use in multiple videos, like just little things like that you might have, like you filmed and you're probably going to use like 2 seconds of it in the video and then never to be seen again. But for them, it would make sense to actually have that raw file that they could use in other things. So give them like little gifts like that. They'll be like, oh, this is so nice that he actually took the time to think that this would be useful to us and, send it to us. Like little gestures like that sort of separate you from just being a contractor that's been hired to do a job, and go more into the category of someone that we want to keep on our team because he's thinking almost as an employee. Like he's got us on his mind. If he can't help us, he will, sort of thing.
And that's great example, because you are building relationships. And it's funny, but like when I see you at venues, I always take a shot of you. I always film you when you're not looking. I'll send it to you because later on you might need that. Now I'm doing it just to make fun of you, but maybe later on people might need that. So that is great. And giving clients a little extra or stuff that they can use later on in another video or in a demo reel or to show their activation. That's great ways to because now next time she needs something or they need something, they're going to be like, oh, remember E sent me that shot? You're going to be on the top of the list. So kindness goes a long way.
Exactly.
So you're a nice guy, E.
I try to. I live to give.
That's it. All right. Well, we got through all the questions and in only an hour and 14 minutes. So we're pretty good. We're pretty good.
Yes, which means you people have to send us more questions.
Exactly. So. Yeah. Honestly, I like an episode like this. Like I know we had to do it in 2 parts, but it's kind of cool to get random questions and touch on different subjects. So any question you guys have, please send in, and we'll do another episode like this further down the road.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this episode of Game Day Glare.
Yes, because Lance has to go to the pharmacy and get some.
I got a cold, guys. I got a cold. All right. Take care.
See ya.